Good morning, Johnny.
Good morning. Oh gosh. All right. Home stretch.
Home stretch.
Yep. Okay. Where did we leave off? I don't remember so much now.
Lamed Ches 38. 38.
Lamed Ches. Okay. I was so tired last night that I think I fell asleep. Sorry.
Rav Yirmi Armalach on the top of Lamed Ches. Ana Damri Afil Rabbanon. I can hold even like the Chachamim. Hi, Alan. We're on Lamed Ches 38. Yevamos. He has the ability to say, listen, compromise with me and be quiet. We're talking about the one guy who had bought the field from the four guys who are encircling this one man's field who went to China, came back and lost his road into his field. Because if you don't compromise with me, the Ilom Hadrana Shalom, I'll give the staros for these fields back to the four people. You won't be able to deal with them because each one can say it's not my field, it's not my field. But in the case of the Yavim, we can't say the same thing. So you have this kid who is Suffolk Ruvain's child, Suffolk Shimon's child, the Yavam, and you have Reuven and Shimon. Reuven died, Shimon had done the Yibum. And they're coming to Shabbat Lachot B'nichsei Saba. Reuven and Shimon had a father, and the father died. And those assets will fall to Reuven and Shimon. Now, if the Suffolk is a child of Reuven, so he gets half of those assets. Suffolk on a high gavra bar misnahu. I am the son of Reuven, upaga didiu, and I get half. Yavam amar ad brai didiat. You're my son, right? Not the Reuven's son. Less lech below meeting. You don't have anything. Have a Yavam Vadai. Now the Yavam, Shimon, we know for sure, is the grandson of the grandfather. Suffolk is only a Suffolk. Vein Suffolk, Motzibidei Vadai. So the Suffolk doesn't get anything. However, Suffolk Uvnei Yavam, the Suffolk kid and the children of Shimon, Shabau Lachlok B'nichsei Saba, and they're trying to divide the grandfather's estate. There is no Shimon, there is no Reuven. Suffolk Amar Hahu Gavra Bar Misnahu. Reuven was the son, and at least Palga Didiu, half of it is mine. Uvnei Yavim Arachuna, you're our brother. And you divide it with us. Palga de Kamoida Lahu Shakli. So they admit to at least half. Tilsa de Kamoida Le Shakal. He's moided to a third. Pashlu Danka. There's a 1/6. That's Havimam and Amutal B'Sofik v'Cholk. In that part they divide. Sava v'Yava b'Dichsei Sofik. Let's say the Sofik dies, and you have the grandfather and Shimon that are arguing over the Yerusha. Or Sava v'Sofik b'Dichsei Yavim. Or the grandfather and the Suffolk with Shimon's asset. That's a suffix that you can't arrive at a conclusion, so you have to v'cholkin. Mishnah. Shemeres Yavim Shenaflu l'Nechasim. Reuven and Shimon. Reuven dies. The wife falls to Shimon. Meanwhile, she's waiting to get Yibum. And she gets an inheritance from her father. She can, nobody has the right to stop her from selling. Now, normally a husband would, but she's not married yet. The Yavim didn't do anything to her, no Yibum, no Chlitza. No Zika. There is Zika, but that's not enough to prevent her from selling these assets. Mesa, if she dies, Mayasa Biksubasa,
She dies.
she dies. Now she has a ksuba that's supposed to be paid to her from Ruve. And let's say the Nichse Maluk that she brings with her when she gets married from her father's house. That doesn't belong to the husband. When husband dies or divorces her, she gets those back. So who gets these assets? The heirs of the Yavim, they're partially married because of the Zika. So his heirs, or the Yavim, gets half of the Yerusha because the husband inherits his wife. And she's a suffix married to him. So she gets half. But the Ksuba, Beis Shammai agrees, is the Chazaka with the Baal. And therefore the Yorshim of her father can't argue with that. The Gemara will explain the reason. You leave each asset where it is. Because the Chazaka is that it's with the Baal. And the Nichse Malug, you leave those Nichse Malug with the father and those Yorshim. However, Kansa, if Shimon had married her, then Yibum, then he inherits the whole thing. The money for the ksuba comes from the assets of the first husband, Ruve, not from Shimon's assets. That's one of the benefits of doing Yibum. The Meister Reisha de Lo Pligi. There, when the Shomeres Yavim was alive, we said that she has complete control of her assets. Nobody argued with that. Umayshna Seifa de Pligi, but in the Seifa where there it changed. There's a Zika, and if she dies, there is a Chelek of the Yorshei Abal with these Nechasim. Amar Ula Reisha de Nafla Kashi Arusa. Really, she had only been given Kiddushin by Reuven, not been married fully. And then Reuven died, and then she got those assets. So there's no argument that she controls it, because even a regular Kiddushin woman doesn't inherit. The Baal doesn't have rights to those assets yet until he marries her. The Seifa de Nafla Kashina Sua. The Seifa is when Reuven had married her. And then she got those assets. There, if the Baal was Chai, those assets would go over to the Rosh Hashanah. So now, when she's a Shomeres Yavim, there's a machlokas how much the Yorshei Baal and the Yorshei Av have. That the Zika that's created when Reuven does Kiddushin only creates only a suffix Arusa. And Zika Nesua, if Reuven dies after he did Nesuin with his wife, so when Reuven dies and there's a Zika, that's a suffix Nesua. So Zika Sarusa, Oisa suffix Arusa, Yitzhak Chavada Arusa, it doesn't make her a Vada Arusa because Moedim Beis Hillel Shmo Ches when it says V'Kayim. Beis Hillel would not agree that if she was a Vada Arusa, she could do whatever she wanted with those assets. Vatna Nafal Nechasim Mishne Sarsa, Beis Shammai Omrim Timkor, Beis Shammai gives her the full right because it was not Nesuin. Beis Hillel lo timkor. So if a Vadai Arusa they wouldn't hold, Safek Arusa certainly they wouldn't hold. El Shmamin Azikas Arusa is a Safek Arusa. When Reuven only did Kiddushin with her and then Reuven died, and now there's a Zika relationship between the woman and Shimon, it only creates a status that she's a Safek Arusa. Similarly, Zikas Nesua also Safek Nesua. If Reuven had done Nesuin with his wife and died, then the Zika relationship with Shimon creates Safek Nesua. The Esau Gedaitich Vade Nesua, Beis Shammai Oimim Yachloku Yorsha Bam Yorsha Av, Beis Shammai wouldn't say they divide it. If it's a Vade Nesua, certainly the husband gets all of it. Vad not Nafal and Nechasim Mishanisis. Both Beis Shammai, both Beis Hillel hold that if the woman went ahead and had received a Yerusha from her father and tried to sell it to somebody, the husband could go and take it out of that guy's hands. Ela Shmami Nazikas Nesua, also Safek Nesua, not Vade Nesua. Omer le Rabba Admiflagi Begufa Ula'achar Misa. Why are you all arguing with these assets and their division after her death? Why don't you make the machloikas when she's still alive? When a woman, let's say, gets a field from her father, the husband normally gets the payros from that field. So that could have been the point of machloikas. Why did you have to go through the case where she dies? Omer Rabba, I divided an afla kashinasua. Both the Reisha and the Seifa is when Reuven did full Nesuin with his wife, and Reuven died when she was in Nesua. And the Zikas Nesua also Safek Nesua. And the din is that the Zika relationship creates Safek Nesua. Reisha di'ihi kaima. Reisha, she's alive. She just got an inheritance, and we question what to do with it. So Avala ihi vadai. So she's vadai, an inheritant, an heir of the person who left her the assets. V'inu safek. Shimon is a safek. Is it her husband or not? Vein safek motzimidei vadai. You can't take assets away from her. She's a vadai. He's only a safek. However, Seifa de Mesa, the Seifa case where she died, and we're discussing what to do with her assets. Halalu boin lirosh, halalu boin lirosh. Each group, the Yorshei Abal and the Yorshei Av are coming to inherit. Therefore, they divided. Eis v'abaya. Ula Beis Shammai ein safek motzei b'dei vadai. You brought me a case where you seem to bring me a proof that Beis Shammai held that safek cannot be motzei b'dei vadai. V'hatnan, I'll show you not like that. Nafal habayis alav alaviv. A person is in a house with his father, and a house fell on them. Now, we don't know who died first. If the father died first, and then the son, so the son would have received the inheritance of his father, and therefore the Yerusha would go that direction. Or alav al moirishav, or on any person and his heirs. V'hayu alav ksubas ishu balchon. There is an isha that got a ksuba that has to be paid, or a creditor. Yorshei ha'av and the creditor and the wife come to the heirs of the father who died and say, listen, pay me off my ksuba, pay me off my balchov. So they say, haben meis rishon, v'achar kach meis ha'av. They say, first the son died, and therefore the son had no share. Therefore, they have more Yerusha. And let's say the creditors of the son or the ksuba of the son's wife have no claim. No, the creditor, the Isha, trying to claim her ksuba, say, no, the father died first. Therefore, the son has assets, and I'm claiming those assets. So it's a suffix, because we don't know who died first. Even though it's a suffix. You keep the nechasim where they are. The heirs of the father, they certainly have a claim. Balchov is a suffix. We don't know whether let's say the son had no assets otherwise. And only if the father died first, does the son get, it's only the Balchov is going to get money as a suffix. So why did Beis Shammai say Yachloku? Because suffix vadai seems to suggest that the suffix can take out of vadai. So Ksavri Beis Shammai Shtara Oimid Likvos Kigavui Dami. It's not a suffix. Since the Balchov had a star to collect his loan, it's as if it's been collected. Therefore, it's like a muhzak, and it's in his assets. So he's a muhzak in the money. So it's suffix and suffix. Umenat temra. Where do we see this? Halacha titnan. Mesu ba'alein ad shalosh shasu. So you have a wife that the husband warned her not to sequester herself in a room. And they have to be brought to the Beis HaMikdash to drink the sota waters. And these are two women. And the husband dies before they ended up drinking. So remember, they don't get their ksuba unless they drink and come out clean. But here they didn't get to drink yet. The husbands died. They get their ksuba, and they don't have to drink the water because there's no baal. They can't have it both ways. If they choose to drink and come out clean, then they get their ksuba. Frag the Gemara, what do you mean oshosos? How could they drink? The pasuk says ve'hivia ish es ishto amrachman of the there's no ish. In fact, Beis Hillel says because they have no possibility of drinking, they don't get their ksuba. The whole din here is suffix. We don't know what she did, whether she did mizan or not. Suffix zanai, suffix lo zanai. The kaasi suffix umotzimi devadai. And Beis Shammai holds they can still get their ksuba, even though they're just a suffix. Against the claim of the Yorshim or Avada Yorshim. El Shmamina Shtar, which is the woman's ksuba, Oimed Likvos Kagavui Dami. It's as if it's already been collected, it's in her possession. Now, Vabaya,
oh no, I have a tech person coming here right now.
Vabaya, Lus V'meha, why doesn't he ask a kasha in a few minutes? Why doesn't Abaya ask from here, from the Sota, that a suffix is Motzim Midei Vadai? Dilma Ksubas Isha Shaini. Mishum China. Maybe Ksubas Isha is a different thing. Chachamim made it so that the husbands would find favor in their wives. So therefore, the ksuba would have a stronger din than most other staros.
Why don't we say it's a vadai against a vadai then?
Which is the vadai?
The vadai is that she's got some
Hanami.
ksuba.
We do say that. That's why they're
Because-
divided. That's why they're divided.
Yeah, so it's not so it's vadai against a vadai.
The lustre ksuba de masnisen. So why don't we ask from the Ksuba to our Mishnah? So lo pligi. There's really no machlokas. V'lo v'aktani mesa. If the woman inherited while she was waiting to have yibum, mayasa b'ksuvasov and achas b'achas v'yatz mimoim. Beishama yomim yachloku yorsha bam yorsha av. They still have in achas b'achas. What do you mean there's no machlokas? They of course have a machlokas. But why? There should be no machlokas based on what we learned in Beis Shammai. So the Gemara answers Achi Kamer. Mesa mayasa b'ksubasa. What should we do with the ksuba v'shavka? And they left that shaila, meaning they didn't give an answer to. But the nichse malug that she inherited from her father, that they divide. And Amr Avashi Masis Nami Deka. I can deduce the same thing from our Mishnah, the Tani. Yachloku Yorshe Abalim Yorshe Av, Loktoni Yorshe Avim Yorshe Abal. So that's because we're sealing, we're not talking about the ksuba. We're talking about the nichse malug that comes from the father. Shema mina. Abai has a different way to learn. Abai Amaresha de Nafla Lakashi Shomer Syavim. Sefer de Nafla Lakashi Tachtav Tabal. Depends when the money fell. One fell when she was waiting. The other fell when she was still married to Reuven. And we will continue this tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to...
So what's tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Shabbos.
So what, in shul you want to learn?
Yeah.
So I think it's 6:05 they announced it.
So we're going to... If Elazar can come, Elazar, if you can come to Young Israel 6:05, we're going to learn that tomorrow. Then Sunday night, we'll learn by Zoom at 9:00 at night. That's the schedule.
Okay.
Tomorrow at 6:05, Sunday night at 9 p.m. by Zoom.
Okay, have a good Shabbos.
You too.
Kol Tov.